So talking about spousal input into your wardrobe, Laura and I were talking about whether or not Birkenstocks were cool. I remember in high school them being cool, and my sense now is that they're not, and we didn't agree on that. And her sense was that Crocs were like distinctly, unironically uncool, which I kind of do remember that. And she says now they are actually very in vogue. Uh, do you have any feedback on this?
Well, whether you're wearing Crocs or Birkenstocks, you're always going to be ahead of your time
Why is that?
because they just keep resurfacing. They're like a hydra that,
Well,
you
people
know.
don't. People like that they can slip on their shoes, but I slip on my tennis shoes, so I don't know. It's
Well,
not.
you can, but the thing about them is they're just never going to be banished from fashionability. They
There's
just
something
kind of retreat and then they'll come back.
intrinsically lazy about them, though, right? I shouldn't say that
Well,
lazy. I mean, they're leisurely. Maybe is a more neutral way.
yeah. Well, they're lazy. They're definitely not athletic shoes. The Birkenstocks, the ones I have, they're like clogs.
If you
And
got into a
so
situation and you were wearing Birkenstocks, you'd be done.
I told Ruthie that the other day. We were walking, and I said, "Look, like if a man comes out of nowhere and he wants to
What
cause
was she
trouble, you're
wearing?
on your own."
What was she wearing? Tennis
I
shoes?
don't know.
She had tennis shoes on. I know it.
I don't even remember.
Is that the only thing she just made a transition between an uglier slip-on shoe to a nicer slip-on shoe? Is there other things she disagrees with?
I could think of other things. She'll
With
say, "Oh, this is nice, isn't this?" Or maybe it's time to get rid of this, or this kind of thing.
it's just more specific stuff. Well, Lori, I think has been pretty generous, but I do get the sense that there is a pushback to my always wanting to wear black. But there are other things. Like she told me early
Hmm.
on, like my shoes were hideous because I was getting like $10 Walmart black Reebok knockoffs, you know. And Reeboks are no prize on their own, but when you knock them off, it's even worse. And she was like, "This is not good." Um, but I have made some slight adjustments on her behalf. But I've never been fashionable, but I can't be because if you decide to be fashionable, then you are the hooks in your mouth. um, uh, it's best to just say, I will receive whatever comes to me. But there are some things that I receive and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a hard time wearing this. But it's better to just not care too much about that, except for you and I have even talked about this on multiple occasions, that there's a kind of social uh, uh, aid to being intentional about how you present when it comes to clothes. But we don't have to talk about this. Mr. Coolman's here.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I'm unnamed. I tried to spell unnamed cool person, but my finger slipped. So
We've been
this
calling
is
you
what it
a
has.
piece in behind your back for years.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm not really worthy of the the style of Mr. Cool Man anymore. I'm kind of fallen
But
down a register or
uh,
two.
I see that you're retaining cool, um, and and it's
Yeah,
misspelling. Which when you go to past people who are like, seems to happen a lot with people who are starting like not barber, like beauty shops or hair cutting businesses, and they'll spell cut or clip with a K, and you're like, why is this a business decision ever
yeah,
to spell words wrong? It gets people's attention, or it shows that you're playful,
yeah. It's definitely the epitome of creative wordplay. I think. It's showing a basic understanding of letter sound relationships, which is impressive all by itself.
I got the sense that you did it
And
Well,
because
it's eye-catching and it's distinctive,
there's a devil may care kind of
even though everyone
mentality
else is doing it.
to the meme culture in
Yeah,
which you're
that
entrenched.
Well, it's Kerouac spelling your YR.
Uh,
Oh, that's
see,
how he spelled it. He should have
Your.
spelled it. He should have spelled it Your, just like all the time. That would have really triggered people.
Craig, send people to Kerouac's rules for writing by explaining it.
I'm not sure how to explain it, but the fact is wherever they came from, he has these tips for writing. And I think people unironically sought him for his writing advice. And he was never a traditional writer. He wrote he wrote on the road in a few weeks or something, and just doesn't, uh, he just doesn't care. And so he has this collection of writing tips, and they just read like poetry or bizarre, passages from a wisdom text or something. So
Yeah, they're a poem in their own right. But
one
I
of them,
did
let's
get
see,
the
he has be. Go ahead.
oh man, I did get the sense that he was actually trying to explain his process like legitimately, uh, uh,
Possible.
and representing at the same time that it is inexplicable. But you were going to give an example or two.
Rule number 4: be in love with your life.
That tracks with,
Rule number, yeah.
on the road and stuff. But
Well, that's not the strangest. Be crazy, dumb saint of the mind.
yeah, or the what was the one about the eye, jewel of the eye is, oh my goodness, I can't remember it. Something about
The
the jewel of
the
the
jewel
eye.
center of interest is the eye within the eye.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically, it's just like trust your instincts and enjoy what you're doing. I mean, there's like a more basic way to read most of it. It's possible there's a lag between what I'm saying and what you're hearing based on some of your reactions.
Maybe there's a more mundane explanation for my reaction to your.
I'm so
How's my
put
video
off.
signal? Does it look? Is it
Yeah, no, it's good for my end. You're coming through good.
okay?
What did you convene this meeting? You know it was a great Peanuts comic where Linus he builds like 100 little tiny snowmen, and you almost think this is going to be a Calvin and Hobbes, but Linus builds 100 little snowmen in like a podium, and then he stands at the snow podium and he says, I suppose you're all wondering why I've asked you here today. I named Cool Peason and I wonder.
Well, no particular reason except that I wanted your company.
Which one of us is the jewel center?
But I won't answer that. So I went to a block party today in my neighborhood. I had a friend who was performing, and the performance happened to be in my neighborhood. Can you believe my wife is vacuuming right now? She knows I'm on a call.
I can't hear it. Zoom's doing a great job.
So at this party, and I talked to a guy who's going to move here in March, and he lives in Corpus Christi right now, and he says that he's a part of this estuary group. Estuary being something this little corner adjacent.
Hmm.
I've heard of it. I've never attended one. I don't know that much about what they are. It sounds like a house church for the clinically unchurched. And we're talking about, he tells me that he's interested in the Arthur stories. He's interested in grounding
That track.
his Catholicism. How should I say this? Grounding his American heritage in something deep. And so he's writing this story that is a kind of fusion of American cowboys and the story of Percival. And
I like that.
and he and well, he tells me that he's very interested in Enochic cosmology, the Book of Enoch's cosmology.
We say Enochian.
And this is, say that again?
We say Enochian, I thought. I'm just playing around.
Perhaps. I wouldn't be surprised. You could pull it over on me. And so this rings a bell in my head because I know that the Enoch, the Book of Enoch cosmology is what would you call it? It's like a gateway or prerequisite for a certain flavor of flat Earth.
Oh, what a setup, Craig. What a setup.
I'm dead serious. And
You pull
so
this flat Earth
the,
stuff on us right now.
well, so you have this, he's doing this thing that looks really wholesome. He's trying to deepen his faith. He's trying to root it in the deepest things he can find, the most compelling things. And he finds the Book of Enoch. And so I just asked him, are you flat Earth? How close are you to it? It doesn't bother me. Just tell me honestly.
This was today.
And yes. And he says the Book of Enoch and a lot of people we know are at least flat Earth tangential.
Well, here's
But
the deal.
go ahead.
This flat Earth stuff you've been talking about for on and off for a month or so, where I could hear it. And I know you have some people you're close to that are pretty open to it. I don't know why you keep bringing it up, um, but it's interesting that it kind of came up organically today. I have a gut response to friend, your friend saying that most people are flat Earth tangential. Does he mean most people kind of more or less? Is it like the time I said everybody is Calvinist, or
So
what's,
what he meant was the corner of uh, the internet that is interested in what he's interested in is they're at least neighbors with flat Earth.
you know why? It has something to do with what I said yesterday or a couple of days ago that wasn't didn't have a high approval rating, which was that flat Earth is a case in point that everything is deconstructible, and because there's a high openness towards things that have been kicked to the curb as kind of nonsense in this little corner, which on Almond Tree we're not supposed to reference TLC really, but there's a high openness and there's a high instinct to deconstruct everything, to on the other hand everything, and that's why there would be any kind of amenability to flat Earth. But I don't think anybody really thinks it is very plausible, just from a unresearched gut level.
You said you don't, I missed the last part. You said, I don't think it's very plausible.
I don't think people that at his estuary think that the Earth is flat. I don't think that's a very serious consideration for them. It's just it's like an icon for the ability to deconstruct things, which is the telos uh, of the clinically unchurched. It's like
Well, I
everything
wouldn't
can
be
be
so
called into
sure.
question. You think you're so sure of everything? You think you're so sure of even flat Earth? Let me show you how there are all these ways you can pick that apart too, or cast doubt upon it too.
Well, so let me ask you this. You're somebody who has, you know, you have religious convictions.
I'm
You
clinically
have,
churched.
hi, you're clinically churched. Now, you're clinically churched, but I suspect you also have beliefs that uh, don't reconcile well with scientific insight in their, you know,
It's probably true.
in their literal form, right? And so, you see a guy like the one I met today, and he looks like he's trying to kind of find some explanation. He's trying to reconcile these, and the story that he finds, I think not an uncommon one, is one that involves this element of organized deception, or like cover up. So these incompatibilities, he would say, are a result of the
Consp
worldly powers covering up the truth about giants, about
Okay, yeah,
watcher
this is
angels.
why you've been bringing it up lately. It's all coming back to me because the impetus of the group that you've been bringing it up in is conspiracy theory, and it's a perfect uh, ca case study to uh, to talk about that with. Um, okay, well, people in power do cover up things for better and worse. The what about with the flat Earth stuff? The thing that I the kind of paradigm that I came up with recently, thanks to Robert um, and his uh, lecture, was that you should pursue a conspiracy theory only insofar as you're prepared to do something about it. Otherwise, it's just kind of entertainment magazine fodder. It's just gossip in a way. So with the flat Earth stuff, so do they say a motivation behind the flat Earth conspiracy, or, or do they think people are genuinely deceived?
A motivation for
Yeah, if it's a
the
conspiracy, is
concealers.
there a reason that people have tried to push forth this round Earth stuff?
I shouldn't try to speculate. I don't know.
Oh, why it's so funny that we've never even thought to talk about this because that would be pretty interesting if the flat Earth community thinks that it's a cover up or and then why, or if they just think they just goofed the math or something. Yeah, we should
Well,
definitely look
I'm
into
sure
this.
there's no. I don't know if there's something like an orthodoxy, right?
Uh,
I'm sure there's a popular
a
opinion.
consensus, yeah.
I don't know.
Uh, yeah, that would be interesting to
The
find
reason
out.
I bring up the Enochic literature because there's plenty of people who don't believe that we have a flat Earth conspiracy going on, but we do have, at the very least, how would you say it? The stories in the Book of Enoch are literally true. We had giants walking the earth. You know, there are ways of reconciling all of these. There's a kind of Enochic conspiracy, and it's what would you call it? It's a kind of sacred flavor of trying to reconcile disparities between scientific understanding and religious understanding by having a kind of it's different than flat earth because flat earth is often it's invoked in a totally secular context. So in
Hmm.
some ways the claims look way more uh, radical. It looks more conspiratorial where you can believe in the Enochic literature and it doesn't look flatly like a conspiracy theory. It just looks like a religious position.
Hmm. Uh-huh. So I'm trying to think about why there's this instinct to reconcile. Uh, so can you think of something that you've discovered in your life that didn't seem to gel with something else you already may have known? or had discovered elsewhere, and 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 you didn't have a desire to reconcile it. I guess you do that if it's pertinent to you. I guess you do it with religion and science because you're if science, something so observational, uh, and in line with perception, which you trust all the time, contradicts something that is not as relative to your perception, then you doubt that other thing. I Most of what we're told. So here's something, and you thought I was being in bad faith when we talked about this before, but when somebody tells you something like about how X in the Bible can't be true because Y in science is true, the Y in science is equally out of reach of at least your subjective perception. Because if somebody tells me that something is carbon dated at this time, and that's why this thing can't be this old, then it's as meaningless to me. It's as removed from my perception as anything else. I have no idea what that means. I have not individually verified any of this. It's just most of the things that are,
So does it,
well,
well,
go ahead.
so just because you don't have the relevant expertise, does that absolve you of the responsibility or the inclination to want an explanation?
No, I just think it's interesting that something like that could. I'm very interested in the past few years about the things that trouble us so much, especially if you were raised in Christian faith, that the things that trouble you so much, why are they troubling you? Should they trouble you? Um, is it enough? Because you can't possibly, I mean, the links that you'd have to go to do due diligence are staggering. Um, and it's just like,
Well,
why?
let's just jump in. Let's jump in right here a little bit because like the idea that round Earth could be a conspiracy is the idea that so many different parties are converging with insane consistency on one narrative. I mean, sort of going to Jason's question of why are planets, why are they round, why aren't they square? It's like we take it for granted that, of course, if it's not flat, it's going to be round. But why, if there was some evil people sitting around, would they decide to make it round and not something else? And they get the word out with, amazing uh, speed and reach, and everybody's in lockstep on this narrative. All the numbers jive, and Eratosthenes does his shadow calculations in Africa, and even he knows to fudge the math to match it to whatever the official line is going to be. However many centuries later. And similar thing with like carbon dating. If it's like if you're researching the science, it's like there's too many. Yeah, it's like yeah, I guess I never carbon dated anything myself, but there are too many individual puzzle pieces that have to fit together, um, for this to be true. And if they at least appear to be fitting together, you know, the cumulative probability of that happening, like the probability that that should happen by chance is like not very much. Like you
But I'm
don't
not
just
even
get
running
to
that calculus.
like
I don't
the way
even
that
know who to go to figure out who's in lockstep on the carbon dating
you would
narrative.
just you would just like research you would research no it's not. I mean, what I'm saying is you would research the science that it's based on, and then unless like every single thing that you're reading about the science is like itself also fake but somehow just like matching up with each other,
But like,
then you would tend to think,
who are
okay,
the
there's maybe something to this
veritable people on carbon dating? Like, who are the people that are the experts on carbon dating, and who gave them their stamp of carbon?
I don't think it's at the level of there just being like one particular dude or it's like a set of people. It would be
My
it
science
would be an
textbook.
area of research that you can look into, and that it's either just it's all fake, but everybody's just getting like this super consistent party line from somewhere nefarious, and they somehow never disagree with each other,
But I don't even
or
know
there's
where I
just something to
regurgitated the
this.
carbon dating stuff from. Like, where did I get this? Like, I couldn't trace it. I can Google right now, like, why is carbon dating disprove the Bible or something? And I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
I don't really know how it would disprove the Bible. Here's what I do think about like evolution or whatever. Why do whales have pelvic bones? Are you going to explain that out of the fall?
I'm not.
Um, I mean, I guess this is the question where it's like, Cal, have you ever seen a whale's pelvic bone? It's technically a nod. I haven't,
That's kind of what I was
but
saying
am
with
I
the
really willing to bet based on? I know, but the idea that you would, I don't know, maybe because in my head I'm always making bets. Like the idea that you would take a bet on that they don't have it, like I would lose money on that all day. Like I know I would. I'm not. There's nobody. There's no way they can all lie
who is
with
all
this
though?
level of
Like
agreement.
I've heard zero people tell me that whales have a pelvic bone up till now.
It's every source that you would consult. Every source that you would consult on this issue, they would
Almighty
all have to
Google?
be lying.
I mean, it's just like, do whales have pelvic bones? Now I'm Googling it. It would have been a more interesting conversation 20 years ago.
No, I by all the sources, I don't just mean Google. I mean if
Well, I
you go
just
to a
don't know what
library,
sources.
there
We
would be
go to the
sources,
library and go
and
to a
those
whale
sources would
anatomy
have
book at the
sources.
library and see, oh yeah, there's the pelvic. Oh, I don't know, It's just that everything we try to assess everything on the macro level, and we
But
imagine that we can't.
at some level, you're just like enshrining your own lack of willingness to research it as like the sort of found
I
as
get
sort of
that.
like your bedrock principle
I
why
do get that.
everything can
I
be
do get that
doubted.
critique.
It's
I
not
do
really
get that
valid.
critique. But this was when I was asking Craig about like, have you ever found something that you didn't feel in? Like, if you told me if Joshua 1:1 said, and God made the well without pelvic bones for some reason in Joshua instead of Genesis, and then the science book said that whales had pelvic bones, I would be like, okay, moving on. I just the
Well,
there's a
Solomon
spirit.
says that the grasshoppers have four legs. Hey, listen. Solomon says grasshoppers have four legs.
As far as I know, they do. I mean, insects have 6 legs, right? I'm so confused. Um, but it's just like
There's
I'm
nothing to be
not.
that confused about. They
The
do
thing
have
is,
six
but
legs. Solomon says they have four, and he also had wisdom that surpassed every other man.
taking way too much to think about the things that you're responsible for assessing, and taking that way too seriously is maybe why there's this need to reconcile. Like the missing pelvic bones of a whale is like the smoking gun for your faith is just
Right. Well,
absurd.
Mitch, the question is how much converging evidence is enough to cast doubt some belief that you have that let's say you believe the Bible. How much converging evidence is enough to cast this existing structure of belief into doubt?
Hmm.
Is there no
Hmm.
amount? Like if you have a belief, what's your perspective? When do you abandon it? When do you at least suspect that there's something problematic?
Yeah, so people change views, but I, I don't know if people change views that often on like the most important things about life. I think people like change views in like a gamified format. They're like, oh, I used to think, you know, JFK was assassinated by Oswald, but now I don't. And it's like it really has nothing to do with the things that I'm going to do in my life. It's almost like a gamified. The things that really matter in life, people don't tend to. I mean, there's like a much deeper kind of reason for overturning them than a few facts. And the facts, I think, the facts tend to be like kind of a scream uh, for why you can't. I I don't know if I'd stand by that, but
I don't know that
it,
that's true. I mean, nearly every personal anecdote I could draw from where somebody I knew had some belief or system beliefs that they abandoned. Maybe they grew up in some tradition that they later walked away from it. It's nearly always because the beliefs they had were incongruent with their experiences or what they experienced from others. I think it's
So there's these kind of
extraordinarily common.
these anecdotal experiences are usually more the case, and I think the fact stuff like, oh, I discovered whales actually have pelvic bones. Now my faith is in Christ. Yeah, uh, 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 maybe, but I feel like there's something. I would be like, I think there's something else at play, and so that's how I usually get around the science and religion stuff. But the bottom line is, somebody makes a case for something and then it's cross-examined, and like, oh, that seems good, that seems right, and then it's cross-examined. That's the proverb in Proverbs 18. But I think that's ex that's an extreme piece of wisdom that somebody makes it. But then you get lost in this constant back and forth. On the other hand, illness, where you can't ever put your foot down anywhere. And so that's what I think about all the time is how to put your foot down somewhere. And putting your foot down somewhere is never, ever, ever satisfactory to other people. You simply cannot win with people. And so you must simply try to do the right thing. It is never going to be satisfying. So it's always going to be under attack. This, and so of course the criticisms to this are totally valid. That, oh, what, you just say you don't ever have to give like a firm defense for what you believe. I wouldn't say that. Give a well-reasoned defense for what you believe, recognizing that it's not going to be satisfactory, and that you may need to stand by it. Oh, then the next critique. Well, what, are you never going to change your mind? You know you can be wrong, right? Well, yeah, you are going to change your mind, but you better do it with fear and trembling, because it is a very serious, serious thing to constantly be shifting your foundation. So these are the ways that I think about it.
I don't totally disagree with that. The only thing is, I think that a lot of Christians would kind of root their convictions in sort of experiences with God, less so sort of these meta uh, critiques or like these considerations of uh, where the chips tend to fall philosophically.
That's right, and that's better. That's why Christianism's not a panacea, and it's not for everybody. It's just a tool for a certain kind of person. And maybe it works for nobody but exactly me. But it's better if you can have your rootedness and you can overcome by the word of your testimony. Is much better.
Well, it might be that you need Christian nihilism as the doorway to start really like praying a lot, so that you would start to have experiences with God. 'Cause, I mean, my doorway was like, not that I've had that many kind of like powerful experiences of God, but my doorway was process theistic philosophy, like Chris Lane, but he was influenced by, what were their names? Like Whitehead, basically.
Wheeler,
The other, who?
Wheeler.
Well, yeah, that's in physics, but I mean the process theism people, I can't remember their names, but um and so that was as weird an entry point as any. Um but and I mean, like, deep believers will say, I don't really have to prove anything to an atheist because I saw some lady's leg grow, another 2 inches to match her other leg that was longer. You know what I mean? And when you see something like that, you just don't you don't really care if some smart nerdy dude is talking about whales with pelvic bones. kind of
Yeah,
kind of
th-
irrelevant.
that's it. A person that has, if you have any belief at all, like if you believe, or if you want to believe, or if you want to believe, you should be nursing that any way that you can find to nurse that, because what you believe in is life itself, and the, drifting away from that is treacherous. And I mean, the warnings against it are well documented. And I mean, I find most things pretty easy to compromise in my own mind. Like if I'm looking at something like this is true, I can pretty quickly like compromise it to the point that I doubt it. Um, and so maybe I come across as swinging way too hard in the other direction, but that's probably just because of my own bend.
But do you really think we should? I don't know. Like I believing for belief's sake, it still kind of rubs me the wrong way. Pascal's wager always rubbed me the wrong way. Um,
Yeah, me
Trying
too.
to presuppose God's existence as much as possible in every single thought and in every instance of relating to God, that is something that um, appeals to me, and which I have done and I'm trying to do more of. But that's a kind of like it's a kind of an offering. It's a relational act. It's not really it's not like some first principle that I adopt when I'm talking to myself. I if that really makes sense. Um, I feel like you should believe something because it's true. And then sort of uh, uh, reaching out in greater and greater degrees of faith. That's an act of it's an almost an exploratory act because there's a faith that if you seek God enough and with enough faith on your part as a sort of offering that you offer to him in advance, whose sort of aroma goes up and is pleasing to God's nostrils, then it may stir him to reveal himself more than he has already done. Um, and that's like is different than just like kind of doing philosophy and sort of uh, telling yourself that you got to believe for belief's sake because
It's
otherwise you're you're lost. I mean, like you might. I mean, aren't you lost if you're just clinging to straws and you're believing in something and you don't really have any good reason to believe it? I
yeah,
don't know.
though that I like what you're saying a lot. When I think about it though, I just look at it. Look, what else? Almost sometimes I look at I'm like, what else can I do? Like, I would like to have this more rarefied version of faith that didn't feel to myself like belief for belief's sake, or didn't feel like grasping at philosophical straws. And like Christian nihilism, as I've articulated to you guys, is not like what I would prefer, is not the way that I would prefer to describe the way my faith ends up shaking out to people. But when I think of it, so what else can I do? Like if this is the only way that I have to hold on, this is the way that I'm going to hold on. And when I talk with other people, and there's some kind of red flag ridden version of the way they're talking about remaining in the faith, I try not to judge it too much. If you can discern any ounce of belief that could possibly be encased in that, you just want to nurse that. And
Hmm.
I don't know if that's good sound wisdom or not.
What's the longest that you fasted?
Yeah, yeah, you got me, man. I
But
mean,
no, but wait, but no, but like I don't mean it like get on my level. I mean it like there is a way that fasting weirdly creates belief, if not during the experience, at least after.
it's just
Like
that
you,
the same
especially
thing's
if you
running at
just do
always
that
been.
enough times.
It's so obvious that like I know what to do and not do it. That's and so like sometimes these prolonged conversations, maybe even writing Christian nihilism is just a way to avoid doing exactly what I know I need to be doing all this time. it's just a way of
You know
prolonging.
that I always felt that whenever I was researching the Tetragrammaton.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, for sure. I totally knew I was hiding from God when I was reading.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the same things when it always
Well,
wonders.
because if it's just a matter of searching some kind of determinate or objective truth out there, it's like I have control over that. But if it's a matter of just being honest with another person and this other person having the freedom to reveal himself or not, I don't have any control.
I'm just thinking, how long have you fasted? It's just always just like like my train goes off the rails. Like, oh yeah, I don't try at all. Oh.
Well, that's not what I meant because it's an evil spirit. Like if I'm bragging about how much more I fast than you, then
As
I'm
far
a
as I know,
straight
you've
up
never
Pharisee,
fasted,
and
and if you're
you're
telling me
you're
you fast, I'm taking that you're
you're
fasting.
going into the kingdom before I am if I'm doing that. You know what I'm saying? So because
Um,
that's not what God is optimizing for.
well, it's a
He's
risky
not choosing
question, but
out of
it's
the
the right
people that,
question. But sometimes mercy is getting on the cross, sometimes
well,
judgment's getting.
yeah, in other words, your willingness to fast and do this kind of stuff, it will acquaint you with the power of God. But in the end, God is not coming back for the people that know his power. His the people his favorite people are literally the people who are, like scoring the least competitive in the who is least competitive competition. It's like super paradoxical.
That always stuck with me
Um,
after you said that.
like,
That's
but basically, the people who are putting love above power, they don't necessarily they're not necessarily walking in the power of God, but well, they probably are, but I mean, not necessarily, but like they just they have love and they demonstrate love. Like, because you can know the power of God and have done miracles in His name, and He'll say, "I didn't know you." What is that
mm,
about? Isn't that creepy?
it is
So
creepy.
even the demons believe and they tremble. Even the demons believe and they tremble. I'm saying faith is not even what's most important, weirdly, because the demons have faith. Like they know, they know that God exists. And the
Yeah.
people who did miracles in Jesus' name and Jesus didn't know them, they knew it too. Isn't that creepy?
Well,
Is you have to have love and you have to get in his presence and stuff. And it's not a competition. It's like they say that God wants to use you. Sorry, he wants you more than he wants to use you.
yeah. So I want to invite Greg to react to what he's been hearing, if he has any reaction.
Well, okay, so loosely speaking, you can draw a distinction between a worldview where man's purpose is to discover the order of the physical world, to try to catalog, to try to understand. It's loosely speaking, it's the Western tradition, it's the Greek way. And then on the other hand, you have the way of the karmic traditions, or the way of, you could put Judaism in this category, where man's purpose, his mission, is not to understand the world, it's to have the proper disposition, have the proper behavior, have the proper alignment with the divine or with the divine principle, and so on. And what I hear, what I've heard both of you say is that when I wanted to write this book, I sensed that what I was doing is I was trying to do the former, trying to do the Greek way, not the Jewish way, so to speak. Now, if that is what you believe, if you believe that you're really not meant to be concerned with the order of things, with understanding, how much understanding is necessary in order to align yourself with the divine, so to speak? Do you just adopt a totally pragmatic approach to all kinds of knowledge about the world itself?
Yeah, I'm not going to totally solve that equation, but that's a good question. I think you just localize the understanding because if you're not trying to categorize things in toto, I think you have a lot more success with it. And if you make what you need to understand pragmatic and relational, then it becomes not such an impossible feat. So that's my solution, so to speak, is just to
Right.
localize more what you need
In this
to
framework,
understand. I don't need to understand with the
so
pelvic bone.
is the
Okay.
Christian nihilism project, or is the sacred name project, is this localized enough to be justifiable, or to be relational, to be
Yeah, speaking to Christian
permissible?
nihilism, it's almost
Sacred Name
entirely a
Project was
pragmatic affair. Go ahead, Kel.
sacred. What were your two criteria, Craig? Because Sacred Name Project was neither of them.
Are you sure, Cal? I
It
actually
was
I was
wish I
straight
had
up
asking.
answered for you.
irresponsible, bad faith hiding from God.
Oh no, I didn't know that, but if that's true, I hope you abandon it. But I got a sense that what your
I can
project,
never abandon it. It's too interesting.
which I get the sense that your project was something that really had the potential to be worshipful. So that is
It's not
always
worshipful because like literally like instead of asking God what's your name, you're like, God, I don't have time to talk to you right now. I have to like download the 37th article that you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, possible to recalibrate it, or possible you just need to abandon it. I don't know, but I think it has high potential to meet the criteria that Craig laid out.
Well, you almost have to assume that he prefers not to be discovered in the world.
Well,
Wow. I love
past what
that.
he reveals himself, and Cal is only interacting with
He
his
prefers
revelation.
he prefers not to be discovered by chumps that aren't fully invested in the chase. I include myself in that category, obviously.
Well,
Oh
it could
man,
just be that he's taken a form that's most interesting to you.
Uh,
that's a very beautiful way to put it,
Like his presence in the world.
no, I see. I mean, the thing is kind of yes and no, but like, if like Hegel said, to know a limit as a limit is already to be beyond the limit. If you can, in your heart, in the Hebrew sense, like already sense that he's somehow bigger than this question, then it's bad faith to be all wrapped up in this question at the expense of praying.
I always felt like
Not
when I
gonna
was in
die.
theology class in college that it was like this could go one or two ways, and it was always wavering. It was just this could go into just we forget that God is even what we're discussing, or this could just be a room full of people trying to parse out who he is. Would you imagine like a room full of your friends in some house, hours away? They're just like, man, what's Craig all about? What's Cal all about? And they're discussing you and they're talking about how amazing that would make you feel and how love. That's a beautiful thing. It's if you forget who you're talking about and it becomes this kind of cold process, then maybe not so much, but could be really beautiful. Wow, Cal is
Well,
the
I,
dark.
I I
Well,
seem to know that. Yeah, I'm in the darkness. I seem to know that on Saturday, March 23rd of this year, I was lying in my bed and I was reading Hebrew scripture, but I wasn't understanding it. I was just like the eunuch in Acts who's reading, and he says, and then Philip says, "How do you understand what you're reading?" He said, "No, how can I unless someone explains it to me?" But I don't think he was reading it in Hebrew. I think it just meant he doesn't like get the plot of Isaiah. I bet he was probably reading it in Greek, but I don't know. He could have been reading it in Hebrew and just not understanding hardly a word like I was. And and I was starting to think about some philosophical question, and I was just like, why would I spin my gears trying to answer this question when I could just ask God? And then for the next couple hours of that, I knew the presence of God was much closer than usual. And any question I would ask, I could sense that an answer was very near to being articulated if I would just, my son, attend to my words, incline your ear unto my sayings, let them not depart from your eyes, keep them in the midst of your heart. Um, and you just really bend my ears and listen, and then he would speak, but not an audible voice, and I didn't see. But the weird thing is that experience, I didn't tell I didn't. It's like a frog getting boiled in water. I didn't notice when it came on. I only noticed it. I only noticed when it ended. Um, it's hard to describe. And
Well,
so there's a
go
reason
on.
why I say this, which is which is I'm trying to learn God's name, the name of the living God. But instead of asking him, I'm searching it up on the computer as if he will not tell me. But the whole reason I'm interested to know his name is that he's the God that relates to you in real life if you seek him with all your heart. So it's a performative contradiction, my seeking him on the internet when I should be seeking him in my heart
Cal just
or in the
wrote
sky, in the air.
the last chapter of his book live on the air.
The judgment of the idols. I was going to work on that tonight, and I was like, there is so much to write. I'm just going to not. And so I didn't.
You're
Like,
gonna
I don't
you're
have
gonna
a
have a
desk.
draft
That's
for us in very short order, I think.
um yeah, it depends, like, because you guys truly don't understand like how quickly stuff happens to T-bone me as soon as I start writing. Um so I don't know about that. And also, like I said, I don't have a desk, but like if I had like a week like where I could just write for 2 hours like every day in a week, like on a desk, like the amount of words I would get out is crazy, is like stupid because I will write like 3 or 4 thousand words in a sitting. Like I do not care.
Meanwhile, we
Now,
have
would it
no
need serious editing? Yeah,
meanwhile we have no
it would need
idea
serious editing because
what Craig is up to anymore.
we don't know what level of how many words he's got in his draft. But you got like 300,000 words. Yeah, maybe
300,000.
60, seventy
Craig is
thousand.
passing out pamphlets in Texas, in the street of his new mathematical solution. It's the only way to do. So I've been thinking about this lately about a man who publishes, a man who publishes. So why I'm saying this is this. It's easy to talk like we're talking. It's sort of this non-committal, in-process kind of way. But the man who publishes has said, I've thought about this, and here you go. I want you to have this. I want it to be set in stone, and I want it to be available. There's something very, um, I don't know the word for it. There's something very, for for lack of any better kind of word, there's something very masculine about that. You say, I'm willing to put myself out there.
Yeah, it's a very categorical difference. It's a very 0 and 1 type of difference. I agree. And any book that I would write, like unless it was seriously edited, it would be like in the third tier of like quality of like thoughts. And like part of why I didn't really like to write before was that like every time I would write something, no matter how well written it was like it was already like way beneath or below where I was presently.
Well, you
Like as
sent
far
me
as
an
what
incredible, like,
said.
uh almost like allegorical story that was almost too, or what do you say, um absurdist even, that was really, really good. A piece of fiction,
The
short fiction.
story, yeah, the story where they live in an alternate universe with them, which is
Oh,
yeah,
did you?
it's a funny idea.
Is this the son of Smorgonion?
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant.
It was a weird twist on a previous story that I wrote that was called Son of Snorgon, which is like itself like a weird twisting of like it's like Smallville and Clark Kent. He's the he's what's his planet called? I can't
Krypton.
remember. No, it's not Krypton. It is Krypton. You're right. Well, yeah, I don't even know. But that was yeah, it was a funny idea. Like,
Well,
but
there's a perfect
that's not
publisher out there
serious stuff, you know. It's
somewhere
not.
for that. I don't know who it is, but I haven't done the research. But there's a perfect publisher out there, some
Yeah,
kind of
you know,
editorial.
that's the thing. Like, if I wanted, like, if I had my 7 days and 2 hours to write each of those days, I could work on that. But it's like when you're gonna give an account of every what word Jesus said?
Idle word.
Careless word.
Yeah,
Every idle word
that's
at the
scary.
end. So like I would have to give an account of that, wouldn't I?
That's what's
Zero
so
son of
important about the books and
Snorgonion.
about publishing is because you're actually giving an account. You're saying, no, no, I'm going to be accountable to this.
Indeed. That's right. That's right. And that something like that, you better do it in relationship with God. And you know, a lot of the time, you know, the truth is a lot of what I thought about in philosophy, I didn't even know that it was wrong, but I knew I had not asked God. I bypassed relationship with God and I just asked myself whether it's true or not. And I just spun my gears. And and that's why I feel bad about it. And
I had a teacher in,
God like ever anyway. But I mean like when I don't feel led by God to do something and it's just like silence, so I'm like not forbidden to do it either. But just the silence, like mm, like if I'm like just the silence it like I'm means I'm out of relationship to some degree or I'm not as much in relationship as I could be. Like that's obvious. And so like it like I had better write whatever I'm writing in relationship with God. And you know, I don't know that, you know, like at least where I'm at right now, I think if I were to write the book now, probably wouldn't it, it would probably turn into a lot of like going back to my old ways of philosophizing, to
Hmm.
be honest. Like and really just like the whole methodology of philosophy is unless I can understand it, unless it can be understood, it can't be real.
all of
And really
all of these
the
things that you're
logical kind of
saying, Cal, should be included in your book. These line of reasoning that you're going through should be included in the book.
yeah, perhaps, but the only thing is just that truly like the not being able to write, like not having time. Like really, if I was really responsible, I would be like doing all that extra work that my job requires, or doing the extra work of finding a new job because my job has too much extra work that I have to do in my spare time. Um,
I saw, I
so you know,
heard
yeah.
on NPR today, Cal, that this woman, she broke the record for people who have through hiked the Appalachian Trail. She did this, of course, by running. Okay, it takes about 5 or 6 months if you're fast to hike the Appalachian Trail. She ran it in 40 days. She was eating while she was running. Only time she stopped was to relieve herself and presumably sleep, though she didn't mention that. She would be moving for 18 hours of her day. So yeah, 9 20. So she slept for like 5 hours a day. I mean, the what you could do, what we could do is way, way more than we're doing. It's we could do the impossible. It's impossible to through run the Appalachian Trail in 40 days. It's impossible.
Dang, I'm having trouble just staying up past 10. So
I know. I think about it every time when I'm like, I want to go to bed right now. but I could probably
Cal,
plug another 1,000 words. Go ahead.
well, there's a profound lack of self-trust here, I feel, because in a certain way, you can look at your own interest, know that this interest is a reflection of the particular expression that God is making through having created you, through having instantiated, what would you say? You know what I mean? Where you say, okay, well, I'm interested in this way, but I don't trust that interest. I have to be suspicious of it because, and the problem is it's like a lack of trust in your own interest, that your own interest is worthy. But if you can't trust
Well, there's
if you
also
can't
the
trust
Hegelian
yourself,
thing. There's the Hegelian thing of to know a limit as a limit is already to be beyond the limit. It's like I can already conceive of something better. Which I mean, because really, um,
Does that
you
put
know,
too much
the
on your conception, on your own ability to conceive what's best? That whole paradigm.
uh, it means that your own conscience is going to accuse you because you're dumping all this time into something that you already know that it's not even the greatest thing that you can conceive of. So it's not to say
well, but
that
it's the thing, but
it's
it's the thing
necessary.
that you are drawn to.
Um,
I think Craig has a
yeah,
good
but
point here.
like Mitch says, that there's a difference between the book that is the result of like a profound commitment and the book that is hastily dashed off. Um, and in order to see it through properly, you have to make a profound commitment to something that you might have sort of suspicions about. Um, I mean, there's a thing where if I was just focused on like the tightness and the concision and the accuracy of the book, I would probably never stop writing it.
Well, everybody makes a judgment as to when it's complete. Before you were here, we talked about Kerouac writing On the Road in 3 weeks,
The other thing is that I
because
don't
he
believe it
didn't
would help
deliberate.
anyone at the end of the day. It probably wouldn't help anyone to know what is the probable etymology and meaning of the divine name.
Well, it
It
would
probably
help
wouldn't
people
help
to think
anyone to like
about,
have.
to think in the right direction for however long it took to read your book.
It
I
probably
think
wouldn't.
it,
Mitch, you don't believe in thinking in the right direction. You can't take the high road now. You've already taken
oh,
the low road.
I disagree with your summation of what I've said today and over time.
Mhm.
No, that's my fault. I was punishing you for agreeing with me.
I've learned my lesson.
Well, let me ask you, Kyle, if you can't trust yourself, how do you trust your own mistrust?
Oh, so this is the time that was so good because we were talking about whether or not everybody could be considered God. And Cal's like, well, I'm God. And I'm saying I'm not God. This is so much fun.
Well, I mean, I guess this is sort of beginning from the supposition that I'm like the be all and end all of my own certainty. I'm my own sort of alpha and omega.
So, right.
And I
How
think
do you
as
trust your
modern
own
people, we
conception?
assume that. I think as modern people, we think that all that we experience is somehow inside our minds. I don't think the ancients thought that way. I'm not sure that I think that way anymore either.
What was
Um,
it that you gave me that
and
good shellacking for that time for thinking that thoughts were located in my brain or something? You took me to task. It was so eloquent too.
that's pretty scary because like I have no recollection of that. Like my memory is that bad.
It was so good
Um,
that I transcribed it.
and
So
so
I'll show it to you.
if this is what dementia is like, then I'm not really looking forward to it because I already have dementia
If you
now.
get the dementia, it's because
But
for
I was
giving me
gonna
the
say,
shellacking that thoughts don't live in the brain, which they do.
I mean, there's something that I can quote myself as having said recently, which is that uh, modern people think that we understand in our brains, but the Bible says you understand in your heart.
Whatever heart
And that I
means in the
think
Bible.
that, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like it's clear that the ancients had
Well,
different
it's also clear that the ancients believed that grasshoppers had 4 legs.
Whatever they meant
some
by
of them.
grasshoppers.
I bet Eratosthenes didn't. I bet that guy actually looked and counted. He was a
My
smart
kid's
dude.
sister is a scholar of the Bible, and we had fun telling her the other day that, unicorns are in the Bible. And I guess she didn't really grow up reading the King James as much as I did. She was pleasantly surprised. But that's why I say whatever it means by grasshopper. My great grandfather when I was a kid, because there's like a fruit or some kind of nut called a locust, and he was like, "This is what John the Baptist was actually eating," rather than that. Biblical scholars would disagree, but I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It says like he hath, as it were, the strength of an unicorn. But I can't remember what Hebrew word they're trying to translate there. But I mean, I think that like modern people, we think of we think of the contents of our consciousness like as like being inside our skull almost. And I don't think the ancients thought that way.
The
I
ancients were
think that
wrong.
they were something like, sorry.
The ancients were
No, that's
wrong.
it's totally right.
uh, uh, Mitch broke up again. I didn't hear again. Philosophers would say that the ancients were naive realists, where they thought that whatever they were interacting with just was whatever they were interacting with, not mediated through their perception. Um, oh, Mitch says the ancients were wrong. Well, I mean, maybe partly, but I guess what I'm saying is there is a view um, of a reality according to which when you interact with something, you are interacting with with the thing itself in this kind of direct and immediate way, and that like when you have a thought or when a thought enters your consciousness, eh, maybe it's in your consciousness, but it didn't originate inside your consciousness. It came from outside, and it can also be like a spirit that you're interacting with that has its own mind and its own intentions, and and that in this way of seeing and being, it's like you know that God is always there, and you know what it means that He's there, and that He can give you a certainty that is different from your own kind of trust of yourself. This is what Cy Cape, who later got into some kind of uh, uh, I don't know what he did, but I know he's sort of fallen from grace. But like I don't even remember what he was supposed to have done. It's probably some sort of sexual impropriety, if
Correct.
memory serves. But the he's a presuppositional apologist, Cy Cape, and he said like God can give me certain knowledge of his own existence, just reveal it directly to me in my heart. He can do that because he's God. He's God. He can do
Unfalsifiable
that.
claim. Uh,
Well, this is like Lao Tzu makes all these very dramatic claims about the way things were at the beginning of time. And he says, how do I know the way that things were in the beginning?
it was
I look
revealed.
inside myself.
Oh, but that's good. I
Yeah,
mean, what
I mean,
you
that's
have
pretty
these
dope.
self-evident
I mean,
truths.
um,
I think most people acknowledge at least one or two.
well, so the presuppositionally, it's like you're always working in a circle. I can tell you
Yes.
what the contours and the constraints of my circle are. Something is true if it is lining up with love. Basically,
Presuppositional apologetics has no problem with circular reasoning because it assumes everybody is doing it, or everybody has to do it.
I mean, even that itself, of course, can be debated, either in a presuppositional or non-presuppositional way.
Yeah,
And
everything
and
can.
um but what I'm saying is, I'm only interested in see, like, the reason why I take Christianity so seriously, I mean, even apart from my experiences, if I can treat of that question sort of analytically or abstractly, as if I haven't had the experiences that I've had. The reason why is that the way Jesus talks, um, it it matches up so well with what someone should be talking about, if uh, they were talking about, like, a God of love, or some kind of cosmic state of affairs in which the ultimate reality is love. Like, whatever you can know about that from first principles, Jesus is matching that really well. But even more, he's he's shedding more light on it. He's refining and deepening your understanding of what that means. So it's like a kind of, um, and you want the theology that most makes sense of God as love, and you
It's
want
not.
the view of reality that most makes sense of that. Um, so, like, uh, I guess I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about whether certain arguments can be made to demonstrate X or Y, because I really only view an argument as being as good as the motive that underlies it.
Hmm. So this doesn't, I guess, even directly respond to what you're saying, but I wonder about this technique or this tendency we have to say something like, if I could just even view this analytically or abstractly, implicitly the hypothetical is that, let's say I weren't a Christian, which is the less strong uh, perspective to approach any argument with. Uh, I don't think you could look at the statements of Jesus and say, that these obviously have a good motive if you didn't have the Holy Spirit to help you discern that as good. What exactly is love, and why is it good anyway? Is it good for everybody? And all of these things come into play when you entertain the hypothetical for any amount of time that God isn't real or Christ isn't true. Or I don't believe either one of them.
What was the first thing you said? Because that
I
was
don't
kind of
know.
the thesis statement, and it was garbled.
Doggone it, my internet is probably bad. I don't know where to start if that wasn't made out, but it's just that when you say something like, let's take a analytical or abstract perspective, implicitly there is the idea you're trying to introduce that, let's say I wasn't a Christian, or I hadn't already had these experiences with God, then I would still find value in what the teachings of Jesus, because I recognize that they're motivated by love. And I don't think that you would recognize that, at least not if you
I think you're mishearing me about that. What I'm saying is, I in other words, suppose I never heard of the Bible, but I still had listened to like 1,500 near-death experience accounts. I'm interested in whatever that is. Um, and I'm not saying that this is good, happy stuff to live by until you die and then it's over. I'm saying I'm interested in metaphysical reality beyond the space-time continuum, beyond your three score years in 10. And And I would think that what that is love. But as a philosopher Monkey, I seem to know that ideas have implications that can be extracted, and that also that you don't have enough time or intelligence to properly extract them all yourself, and that you can sort of happen upon a decade's worth of findings in just one moment of lucky hearing. And so you go searching for the information, and Jesus, the way that he talks, he's talking like someone who's acquainted with this, and he's also speaking of like the risks um, that are inherent um, uh, in existence where the ultimate reality is love, um, in a way that, say, New Age voices don't always seem to speak. And that makes it more compelling to me too. Um, and I'm just saying that, yeah, at the end of the day, I don't really care who can make some kind of argument for this or that position. I do care more about sort of the reasons why they're doing that. Um, and if it's just to get published or if it's just to win some kind of argument with somebody else, that's probably falling in the category of stuff you're going to have to give an account of at the end of your life. And it's not to say that I'm all that good at resisting temptation. If you want to take an example of temptations that I'm not good at resisting, name pretty much like all the temptations of the flesh. I'm not good at resisting them, but it doesn't mean I don't try. It doesn't mean I have at least some kind of elementary system of like categorizing stuff and saying, no, that doesn't lead to anything good. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to focus on this. Um, you know, um, I don't quite know why I got onto that, but um, God is love is the whole summation of the issue, and that's the mind that I want to sort of be mining in. But ultimately, there's a performative contradiction in believing that you can sort of get all that philosophically when the whole point of love is that it's relational, and that you should just be learning about love from the person who is love. Um, you know, but then see that's when your own bad heart kind of limits you more than you wish it would. Um, and you have to really fight with your heart, and you have to just pray uh, as much as you can make yourself pray. Um, and also really receive every circumstance as a gift, knowing that if God is real, then everything that has happened in your life is the best thing that can have happened. And so you receive everything in your life as such, and you praise God and you thank Him for all of it. And you try to stay in that headspace, try to, sort of be focused and intense, you know, um, in that headspace, especially that relational space of like talking to God as to an other. That was something else that was very key. That was emphasized to me a lot on March 23rd. For a long time after that, I just kept praying, Jesus, I know you're here. I know you answer every prayer. Have mercy on me. I always began every prayer with Jesus, I know you're here. I know you answer every prayer. But then the silence of God was killing me so much. The silence of God after those 2 or 3 hours or whatever it was, because it was total silence after that. But it's just like I had the conviction that He's still there and still hearing, just like He was in the experience. And the it's like I couldn't bear to really like unburden myself to God. So I would just, when I had His ear and when I called Him on the phone, and he had his ear on the receiver, so to speak, listening, all I would say is, have mercy on me, and then just kind of hang up ridiculously. But uh I guess that it goes some way toward illustrating paradox of it. Anyway, let's stop talking.
Craig, what are your reactions, man?
I also pray, having the sensation that there's nobody on the other end of the line. I think that's very common.
Do what? Yeah, no, I think that's normal. I think that's normal. And I don't think that there's any, it's like, I don't think that he talks more to the people who are like somehow better. I don't think it works like that either. I truly don't think that there's any actual, I don't think that anybody's more holy than anyone else in any absolute sense as far as God sees people.
Right. Well, listen, there's a certain way where if you believe that your prayer is effective and that whatever if you're looking for the answer to something or you're looking um, for him to give you the correct disposition and you just trust that he's going to do that, it amounts to just trusting yourself. If you say, I'm going to prayerfully think, how do you say this?
It
If
no
I say, I
longer
believe
feels
that
like
he's going to
you're
give,
all alone in your own mind trusting yourself. It feels like he's there with you, and that what you call your consciousness was never just you. It is
totally,
you and the world at the point where where the boundaries between these two things are blurry.
exactly right.
Is this placebo prayer stuff?
Well,
Because I don't have any
you could
time
call
for
it
it
that.
if it's
Like you,
placebo prayer stuff.
No, I'm
mm,
not talking. It's not that. It's just that
I don't think prayer is an arrangement of
the
the.
the self
I
the
think
self
there's an actual
consciousness, the
personality,
self
however
paralysis
invisible
melts
and
if you
silent.
just believe. Well, sure, because where the hell is that place where the thoughts come from? That insight comes from, that your disposition comes from.
Mm-hmm.
what if you're
God
just
knows you
always
don't
walking
do
around
it.
inside a spirit realm that's like there, that it's underneath, it's like back of and behind the physical realm. Just always walking around in the spirit realm, and there's spirits floating around in the spirit realm. And every time you have a thought, that's actually a spirit talking to you, where it's your consciousness and the spirit kind of intermingling or intercoupling or something like that. And like you kind of need two to tango to have a thought. You need the, what is the word I want? You need form and you need content, something like this. Um, you need the abstract and you need the concrete, or you need the generic and specific, something like that. I'm sure that it's all very, I'm sure it's all very Sheldrakean, like, and that it goes way beyond what what we what we understand with like the standard model of physics and all this kind of stuff.
I think
I'm sure
it's
it's very
just
freaky and like psychedelic.
Sheldraken. I don't think there's the I in
Well, I'm at liberty to form these adjectives however I want.
there.
They're not in the dictionary.
Hey, how would you add verbalize Enoch?
Oh, that's a good question. I
Because
thought
we
it was,
Craig
see,
and I
because
had a
the
dispute.
Enoch, because when you talk about the Enochian language of John Dee, that's Enochian. But I think scholars talk about Enochic literature.
Okay, so Enoch, that's a new one because we're between Enoch and what were you, I can't remember what you said actually,
I
Enoch.
said Enochic.
Okay, you said Enochic. I apologize.
I think that Enochian is the name of the angel language. Do you guys know about John Dee?
No.
It was like this very he was a like all the he was like around Elizabethan times. I don't know if he was exactly a contemporary of Queen Elizabeth. I might be a century off in either direction, but um, he was, like in those days, all the smart people were polymaths. To be an educated person meant you knew about everything. In part because they
including
had,
carbon dating and whale pelvis.
Well, that's still
yeah, I mean,
true.
they had
That's
they
still
had they
true
had to throw.
You
because
you
it's
you
still a
took
very
personal
liberal
account.
arts format. When we go to school, our public education is it is a broad sweep, I would say. Maybe you could say it's not as robust, but I mean it's still making a wide swing. I think
Um,
the American people are polymaths.
yeah. Anyway, John D. I've got his Wikipedia article pulled up here, but basically what it was he was he was man, that dude was studying Hebrew and he made up some kind of angel language or something. Um,
Dang.
and what what did he do? Like he made up this language to talk to angels, and the angels started talking to him and his people that he was communicating to the angels with. And the angels told him and his people that they should like sleep with each other's wives or something. Like whatever thing is talking to you is not of God. You just know that. God keeps his silence for a reason. It's so that chumps who have bad motives, who are not seeking him with all their heart, will not have an audience with him unless it happens at the date and the time of God's choosing. At the time when God has calculated for maximum effect, his words
Nobody
will
knows the
will,
date
will
or the time,
sink.
Cal.
No, what I mean is when God gives a grace to the unworthy person who wasn't seeking God, God can do that too because God's not in a box. But when He does that, it's because He has chosen the moment at which um, His self disclosure will have um, uh, the right effect. Um, but no, John D. He was talking to the angels, and he made his freaky language with his sigil, and that language is called Enochian. That language, like Voynich, it's like a demon language. You know what I mean? Super interesting though, but you can't like don't study it. You know what I mean? Because it's like it, it's it's that's like some of the most dangerous stuff you could ever spend your time studying. Like all that really detailed, deep stuff that are in the grimoires, or like the magic of Solomon. All of that stuff. That stuff you would really lose your mind. Um,
So I had
but
trouble
that's
finding
called
about that
enough.
stuff. And I was like, because I watched some movie that alluded to the fact that Solomon was into magic arts. And then I just did
I
some
think he
Googling
was.
around. Well, I struggled I mean,
You
I
think
found
if
like a,
bro had like 600 something wives that he wouldn't be into that? You know that every sin is connected to every other sin.
You guys both do something that is just begging to be psychoanalyzed, where what you'll do is you'll say something that seems very you'll use kind of a sacred language to describe something and say something with conviction that sounds like it is coming straight from biblical text or from a devotional or something, and then you'll pepper in some kind of street language, like you'll say chump, or you'll say, bro knows, almost as
uh,
if to indicate, like your self-awareness of the absurdity of the thing that you're claiming with
Hmm.
total conviction.
that's
Maybe,
good.
but maybe it's to show that the stuff that religious people are all concerned about is not distant or remote stuff. It can be relevant.
That's right, Cal. You guys both did a good psychoanalysis. Craig, at the very end of your monologue there, you said, as if to be self-aware about it. And then Cal immediately comes back and says, well, it's to say that it is actually not disconnected from reality and from daily life. And but this is a very interesting observation. Craig, you said the other day on the phone about something that it was like biblical, bibl what did you say? Biblical keys? I
What I said to you was, I said the phrase, a lust for the ways of the flesh and the dross of the world. And you said, ooh.
Hmm.
I said, what is that
Yes,
quote? And you,
Bibleese.
Bible that's it. I couldn't figure it out. But it's
Yes,
just
I
Bible
believe. Yeah.
that's
What
kind
would
of
you type it?
sinister, when you say you can talk in Bibleese with cleanliness is next to godliness or something, and then you end up being able to promote things as biblical because you use like a biblical kind of format that we're used to in at
Frame.
least in the West, and that's that's kind of sinister if you think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure if you ask Meta AI to write the next chapter, the next book of the Bible, it could do a fairly credible job
Yeah.
with
Oh
enough
yeah. That's a
processing
good point.
power. Or did you ever research the forgery of the secret Gospel of Mark? It's actually
No.
it's a forgery so good that about half of New Testament scholars or more seem to not believe it's a forgery.
Wow.
In my
So I'm
in my
still
in my opinion, I made a kind of cumulative or statistical case that it must be a forgery. But because I'm not an expert, I had to rely on some grounds other than actual knowledge of the ancient languages and texts. But basically, it's it's this it's this it's not even the secret gospel of, so it's like supposedly there was a secret um gospel of Mark that was like not as pared down as canonical Mark,
well, it's like you lost me at
that
secret.
was known to. Mhm.
You lost me at secret. It's this is the revelation of God. Well, if secret's on the front of it, I have good reason to be skeptical.
You never read The Secrets of Enoch.
Got me. They were in an angelic language I couldn't understand.
Uh, the idea was that this supposedly secret gospel of Mark was supposedly known to um, the initiates, like in the Christian community of Alexandria, I want to say, those who were in the know, they got to read the secret gospel of Mark, which was like the expanded version.
Yeah.
And but really, what was supposedly discovered was not the secret gospel, but a letter of Clement of Alexandria, alluding to the existence of the secret gospel and containing a rather um, spicy excerpt therefrom, um, because it implies that Jesus is engaging in like homosexual relationships with certain of his disciples. And this was, in my view, what this was a forgery perpetrated by a biblical scholar who was just so good and so so beyond knowledgeable of like the way that these people just like eat, sleep, and breathe like these same four books, these same four gospels. Like I'm sure it must get into like every cell of your brain, like at a totally different level of familiarity than you or I are accustomed to. And like based on that, he could just like write. He chose the point in the Gospel of Mark where it feels like they were on the road to Jerusalem and they were amazed. It's like, wait, what were they amazed about? It doesn't make sense. He chooses that point to insert his little expansion that he refers to in his fake letter of Clement. And I can't remember what all it says, but like I said, it it suggests that
Mm.
Jesus is doing things that are improper. But it's all the language, the phraseology is so dialed in that if you found that in a book and it wasn't found by the person who very likely forged it, but it was just found like by you and you came across it, you would think, whoa, maybe this was an extra like maybe this was something that was originally in the Gospel of Mark that got edited out, that was
Mm,
there in the older manuscripts, because that's it reads exactly like that.
yes.
Dan
But
Brown
I mean,
didn't
this
make
is,
any use of this. It's impossible.
No, he
well,
didn't.
this is
No,
just
actually,
like,
nobody knows about this,
well, you're
but it's
suggesting
there.
that
It's in
there
the
was a
Gospel of Mark.
particularly tempting location to splice in some
That's
fan
correct. That's
fiction.
correct.
They were
And
amazing.
he, yeah, they were on the road to Jerusalem, and they were amazed. And it's like, what? Why? It's like it doesn't say
Well,
what amazed them.
this is exactly the situation with the Book of Enoch, and I don't know, the confidence that we have about its origins, but you have, these 10 patriarchs prior to Noah, and the seventh one is Enoch, and in the genealogy, it just says, but he never died. He went to, he was taken into heaven, and there's
Yeah,
no
the
other.
Book of Enoch. If you ask me, that one of the epistles of Peter, I just can't remember if it's the first or the second, whichever one has that long, confusing part about how, like, baptism now saves you, just like
Yeah,
the ark
Second
did
Peter.
when in the days of Noah, the long suffering of God, da da da. Yeah, Second Peter, to me, he's definitely alluding to Enoch.
Hmm. So I've not read it, so that's interesting.
So to me, Enoch is, if it's not, even though it's not canonical, it was
But
like almost,
if so, I mean,
it
that's not
was
the
it
only
was
time
taken
that
very
a
seriously by.
canonized book is referencing something that didn't make the canon.
No, it's definitely not the only time that ever happened. There's many times that happened, but I'm just saying Enoch, I take it quite seriously because I think the Bible authors did,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean it's canonical.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, I don't, for me, this undermines it a bit, because you have first Enoch, and if that was referenced alone, all well and good, but then you have the kind of second, what would you call it?
That's
It's not the
true.
sequel, but it's kind of like the director's cut, which is the second
Yeah,
Enoch, The Secrets of Enoch. And it's a little bit, it's the same content more or less, but it's more detail,
You
and
lost me
it's a
at
little
secret.
bit more specificity. That's just what it's called.
Yeah, I know. I'm
yeah.
just fooling.
I see. I
What
took you too
what is
literally.
it compromised though? What were you saying? It
Well, there's three of these things, and they get more and more fantastical and less and less
I
credulous,
see.
and so
Well,
it kind
it's
of
like when
draws
somebody comes years
the
later
credulity
and
into question.
wants to direct a sequel to a classic film, and it's like Dorothy Returns to Oz or something. Like, oh,
Yeah,
this is the compromise. The
yeah,
original MGM masterpiece.
yeah. Really. You
Yeah,
guys
no,
both
but
turned the lights
Enoch
on
is,
suddenly.
yeah,
We
I
just had
like.
this thing going on. Like Cal's picture was like entirely a Rorschach test, and there was no
mhm,
discernible features at all.
that's right.
It was good. It
It
was
was
good.
it was a psychological test that you
But
guys
what were
you
you
guys
saying?
have. That's well, I'm saying Enoch is good stuff. I think it's good to be reading Enoch,
Why
and
do you call it good?
even to be. Hmm?
Why do you call it good?
um oh, it's only one book that's good, the Bible. Yeah, no, yeah, the I think Enoch is great stuff. Um, I think that what's also interesting about that is like the Nephilim, and how for most of Christianity, what demons are is fallen angels, and that is really an inheritance from the Catholic Church, whether people know that or not. That's just one of the many traditions that.
I want to talk about the Nephilim because I saw Rosemary's Baby
Hmm,
recently. Have either of you seen it?
yeah, that's right. No,
I will. Then I shouldn't spoil it for you, I guess. Moving
It
on.
doesn't matter.
no, you
I'm moving on.
spoiled it for me because I said it doesn't matter.
Okay, it's spoilers for any two or three people listening. The premise is that a husband and a wife move into a New York apartment. They want to conceive, and he's kicking the can down the road. He's an actor who's not doing great, and they have neighbors. And the husband gets to talking with the neighbors after they arrange to invite them for dinner, and he basically tells him off camera that there are ways that they have that can help to promote his career and bring him into prominence. And essentially, the trade-off that they make for, performing spells or whatever is that they would be able to arrange for Satan to impregnate his wife with his spawn. And so that's what happens. And so after it, I got to thinking, I was like, well, I know Jesus says this thing about, it's not going to be like that in the world to come because people won't
Mm,
be married or given in
yeah.
marriage. But then I thought, well, that's about the
Yeah.
world to come. So you have this Nephilim stuff, and a lot of people say it was these fallen angels coming down and making it with the sons of men or the daughters of men. And
That's what the Bible says.
right. And so
Well, it
I'm
doesn't say
thinking,
fallen angels. It says B'nai Elohim. It means sons of God.
so sons of
Um,
God. We
uh,
think of this,
the
we
sons
think
of
these are
God are
fallen
like they're
angels.
like Elohim. They're like spirit beings. They're spirit. Yeah, I mean the whole thing about There's so much going on here. Like Derek Prince said, he couldn't believe that demons were fallen angels because they were so like animalistic and stupid. But the thing is, what do we mean by angel? Is an angel a type of being, or is it a job that a type of being has? And then what is the type of being that we're talking about? Aquinas said that every angel is its own genus. That is to say, every angel is sui generis or one of a kind. Um, uh, there's not like species of angels, like one species with many members. Um, but like we don't really know what we're talking about at all. Like when we're talking about these things, we just know there's spirit beings of some kind. That's really all we
Right.
know.
No, yeah, I know
Um,
that. And so that's exactly the kind of math I was
and
trying to run. And I
and
know
what
Aquinas,
does it mean that they create make children? Because I wonder if that even really means if that
well, they
necessarily.
say what it means, right? Is it produces that whatever that act was, and whoever they were produced the Nephilim, right?
Well, there's always different. I mean, like, did Noah's Ark really happen?
Oh,
What does
well,
it represent?
yeah, that's right.
And
Well, I'm just trying to run the numbers, and because I'm trying to, the reason I bring up Rosemary's Baby doll is because I'm trying to interact with this stupid piece of Hollywood fiction, and I'm like, so could this even happen? Could the devil or a demon? And so, lo and behold, Lord of Spirits does an episode a few weeks later
yeah.
about this very topic, and they said that these kind of conceptions were said to have happened or were said by theologians to be able to happen, in which a demon would consort sexually with a male, take his seed, consort sexually with a female, and sort of like a demonic pollination would go on. But if that's the case,
Mm.
Rosemary's Baby could not happen because in Rosemary's Baby, the baby has genetic, for lack of a better word, the characteristics of Satan. We would say he has his
Yeah,
father's eyes.
he has genetic differences, and just as the Nephilim, for crying out loud, are supposedly super tall. Like they give the height of the Nephilim in Enoch. There's like super tall. It's like more than 40 feet. It's like
Greg,
it's
could
like
you
not
psychoanalyze
not
why
Goliath tall.
Cal is saying the Nephilim for crying out loud?
Yeah, no,
I
that's
can't.
that's above his pay grade as an analyst. But I'm saying that for the people that were the contemporaries of Jesus, that were like sort of writing in the intertestamental period, the rabbis called demons bastard spirits. They called them the spirits
Cal, can Rosemary's
of.
Baby, can that plot happen or not? Can Satan produce his spawn through a human woman? Just tell me the theological truth.
Oh, I truly do not know. I
That's
truly
not
do
good
not
enough
know if a
because that's what
spirit
I'm
can
trying to know.
produce
Okay, and my best
a
guess is
child with
no.
a.
They can be, Rosemary could have been pollinated, but it still would have been a human person.
There is no way to know. There is no way to know these things. The metaphysics that it implies or presupposes is like is like so much metaphysics is attached to that. Like whether it's like about the relationship between the spiritual and the physical, and they're the way that you should conceptualize them. Like no one can figure that out, like from first principles. And
Well, you
and
read these. Go on.
no,
Craig, go.
that's what I'm saying. And people act like either Catholicism and its magisterium or just the Bible by itself, even worse. Like somehow this has enough resources for you to determinately figure all this stuff out. No, it doesn't. There's too much stuff that's left undetermined by it. There's too much stuff that's simply not pronounced on or not ruled on. You wouldn't ever be able to know the answer to a question like that if you ask me.
My question was
Um,
just, Rosemary, should she keep the baby or not? Because what extent is it could have
oh,
possibly said to be made in the image of God? But
that's a sort of a Catholic catch 22. I would
that's
say
for
you
her
do.
pastor, for her priest to help her parse through. In fact, in the book, I read
Yeah,
that she did write to the Pope to tell him about the situation, and she said, if he needs to kill it, that's on him, but I'm not going to do it. Spoiler again.
anyway,
Cra-
point was that for Jesus' actual contemporaries, demons were not fallen angels, at least not all of them. They were the spirits of the children of the sons of God and the daughters of men that were wiped out in the flood. Their spirits like, kind of haunted the earth. I guess it wasn't appointed for them to die once and then immediately, but in parentheses, uh, go and face the judgment.
Craig, what were you saying?
Anyway,
You said you read what?
Well, no, I'm having this impulse many times because it seems too relevant to me to reference these Enochic books. If you want to try to speculate, playfully or try to tease it to the end, that's probably the only place with you know, reasonable shreds of credibility or respectability that you can draw from it.
So, did you want
yeah,
to get back
right.
to the flat Earth stuff or no?
No, absolutely not.
Somebody was saying it was on NPR earlier today, and they were saying that there were these paranormal investigators that were wanting to speculate about the lifespan of ghosts, and it's
Hmm.
just,
It's a
oh,
very relevant question.
I couldn't tease out the relevance, but I would hear you more on.
No, I'm saying the bastard spirits, the demons, are these ghosts of the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men that were wiped out in the flood. How long does a ghost live? Apparently, a long time.
Is it
Uh, that's
appointed for the ghost once to die?
that's what I just asked. Like,
Yeah, it
and
does.
people
That's what
misuse
made me
that
think
verse
of it.
because they say because it's like you can't have ghosts because it's appointed for man to die once, and after that the judgment. It's like so obviously you immediately go and face judgment after you die. Where does it say that? There's nothing in the Bible that says there can't be ghosts. When they saw Jesus walking on the water to them on the boat, they thought he was a spirit,
Well, you say just
you know?
the then word kind of, um, I mean, could easily gloss over a whole long period of liminality.
It could there can be time in between that. It's not
Yeah.
definitively there is so many things that are not determined by the text. And even if you're working with this very broad tradition and a magisterium like in Catholicism, there's a lot of things that aren't determined by that either. The number of questions you can ask and the level of specificity and detail you could get into so vastly exceeds what is defined and what is pronounced on that it's just it's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, the intellectually honest person
No.
ends up saying everything is vanity or hevel. I
Well,
mean,
it's fine. You have to you acknowledge that it's fun to do it, but you acknowledge that you're like in the territory of like who would win in a fight, Superman or like Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. And it's totally fine, but you just have to, know that
Yes,
that's where you're at.
yes, know where you stand. Oh, you guys ever
We,
seen Burn After Reading, the Coen Brothers movie?
I would love to continue the conversation, but I do have to go to bed.
Just
But I will.
go,
You guys
Cal.
are gonna,
You
you guys are gonna air
stupid,
this
dumb
on the.
animal.
You guys are gonna air this on the almond tree.
Yeah, this is
Then
the almond tree comeback without its progenitor. Did I use that word right? Without its
yeah, yeah, yeah.
without Jason. No, I mean,
It's
but he
actually
always
Progeniator.
forget. He always said, "I want you guys." He's like, "This is not mine. I want you guys to be like recording and posting without me like all the time." And
And
this is,
now
I
we
think,
did
the
that.
first time we've done it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
it's the comeback he would have wanted, but it would have been nice if he was here to complete the Four Horsemen.
Yes, that's true. But I'll see
Oh,
you guys later, and I'll watch it. I'll watch it when
see you,
it's
cool
up.
man.
Bye bye.
Watch it, man. I mean, I could barely do it once.
I was there, and I could barely sit through it. Oh, what else, Greg? Is there anything else preying on your mind?
No, my mind is
Clear suddenly.
a burnt piece of toast at this hour.
Well, I mean, I'm an hour ahead of you, so you need to get into the mentality of the woman who ran the Appalachian Trail in 40 days.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about Burn After Reading.
Okay, just there was not much there. It's a Coen Brothers movie, and it's a comedy of errors, and it's just a series of characters who are having
Yeah.
experiences that are related to each other, but that they can't draw the line. And at the very end,
Mhm.
J.K. Simmons, oh, excuse me, Academy Award winner J.K. Simmons says, what did we learn? He says he's an FBI guy. He says to his assistant, he's like, what did we learn here? I felt that way a little bit at the end of this. Like, what did we learn? I don't know if we got anything out of this. We traversed a lot of territory that we've been over and over and over again, and that's helpful, at least for me. And we always do this thing because you said when we came in, when I asked you why you called us here, that it was for our company. And so, in the spirit of just being here for our company, I indulged some rabbit trails and some non sequiturs. And that's why we end up talking about things like Rosemary's Baby and our wardrobes to start. And, really one never gets tired of that sort of thing if you can get outside of your own head and just enjoy. But like you said, it may be uh, a Superman versus Dragon Ball Z type thing where
Mm.
it's just there's no point to it, but it's fun. And but you talked. Well, I used to tell you that I was doing crossword puzzles, and you would say that crossword puzzles to your mind seem like a monkey with his hand caught in the cookie jar. And I don't know why you said that at the time, but it always stuck with me. And I guess we all have things like that. And if this is the thing we have that's like that, we could have a lot worse things. I could be doing a crossword puzzle right now, my eyes being
Mm.
seared by it as I lay in bed in the dark.
Ruthie and I watched Burn After Reading together, and she just hated it.
When?
Oh, a couple years ago.
Because I remember, I think I watched that movie at the mill, so we would have probably been living together. I don't know if you were in the audience there, but
The first time I saw it, that was probably it.
why did she hate it?
Well, it doesn't hang together. It's so
Yeah,
abrupt and gruesome in the end.
yeah.
You know.
Well, the Coens are like that. They really do get a little nihilistic, and they point that out.
Yeah.
I think they're very honest to point that out. To say not, and these guys are in the business of filmmaking where you're supposed to produce something that coheres, and it does in a way, but they want to draw attention to the fact that life doesn't cohere, and so that our most honest narratives don't either.
Mm.
It's so funny that we watched that probably together. Uh, there was one movie that I saw at the mill, and I couldn't get anyone to remember it watching it with me. But I know I didn't watch it alone, and I know I watched it there. So somebody's forgetting.
What's the movie?
Oh shoot! It had Bill Paxton and it had Matthew McConaughey. Bill Paxton had two young boys, and they were like, I can't remember the name of the movie. Is what I'm telling you the plot. But he had two young boys, and he was like a religious zealot of some kind, and it had some dire consequences. And I think McConaughey was like a cop, a local cop that kind of helped put things back in order. So maybe you watched it with me, but I can't even
Go
remember the
fish.
title. So
Go
yeah,
fish.
these movies that we watch and the way little scenes will stick with us, we can't like pull them out like a proverb or a quote in the same way because you end up having to describe the scene like I just did. And it's not the same, right? But they're like touchstones for all of us. But you can't really wield them in the
Mm.
same way that you can some of the things. It's too bad Ruthie didn't enjoy it because it doesn't hang together for anyone, but other people find reasons to like it. So you didn't catch her like chuckling or anything doing. She hated it. Wow.
She did a couple. She did a couple times. Do you think I'm going to be able to convince her of the redeeming quality after she saw this axe murder and it
But
already had this guttural, visceral repulsion?
it sounds like you screened it for her. So you must have been remembering it fondly or something.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's, it has value. It's not. What
What
do I
did
need
we
to say?
learn? Not a
We
thing.
took a chance.
Yeah. Well, the way people watch movies and why, it's becoming pretty interesting. Um, you've probably, I don't know if you have, but I have like a list I can't possibly finish of movies I'd like to watch. And when you watch them, so Lori and I do this thing where we swap back, we alternate nights, which has been really good, because she'll often pick things that I probably wouldn't have, or and vice versa, and that makes things really entertaining.
I thought of you in DC. We almost watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
If
That was
you've
going to
seen it,
be, no,
I
to my
thought I
shame.
sent it to you as a gift.
Yeah, and that's why it's so shameful
Okay, well, you will watch
because
it.
I haven't. Well,
I would
but
tell
you
you
know what we
this though.
watched?
What did you watch?
We watched You Can't Take It With You, which is about as close as you can come.
Completely changed my life as a kid. Now, I'm curious how it landed on you as an adult.
Well, it was a little hard to get through. The message was great.
It was boring to you. It was a little cornball.
It was a little boring, but I hung in there, and the message was unbeatable.
Yeah, the message is good. This is it won the best picture. The Academy Award for Best Picture. And the thing about it is, it was also a very popular play. But these things, I don't know how you do with classic film in general. I know I see increasingly, and that's a worry I have be watching Mr. Smith. A lot of people say this is unrealistic, this is cheesy, this is overly sentimental, this is. But I think if you like Sorkin, you'll like because Sorkin takes from Capra, like he is the reincarnation of Capra. So I have more hope that you'll like Mr. Smith than I would have had hope that you'll like You Can't Take It With You. In fact, I don't even bother recommending You Can't Take It With You to people, despite how transformative it was for me. I suspect it has a lot to do with the fact that I was young when I watched it, and
Mhm.
less cynical. But also, a certain generation of adult can can take that no problem. Like they don't bat a lash, but our generation really, this generation of adults really struggle with that kind of material. Schmaltzy, they say.
It's heavy-handed.
So I wanted to talk about heavy-handedness in movies to anybody that would listen lately. So
Mhm.
since you used the word, we watched a movie, me and Wesley, in theaters the other day when Lori was out of town. We went out, and it's called Conclave, and it uh, is an adaptation of a novel, and it details the choosing of a pope after the previous pope's death. And it was just so obvious that it was interacting. It was coded for 2024 and the election, and it the book was written, I think, released in 2016. So you get the sense that it was probably coded for the election, and you get a lot of talk about choosing between the lesser of two evils and that kind of thing. And I thought this is only going to be problematic for people who are cynical or sensitive to heavy-handedness in the exact context that is being heavy-handed about. Like I was like, what if this came on Turner Classic Movies when Mitch Capps was 14 years old? He would have loved this movie. And I was just like, but there shouldn't be anything. People have a hard time taking allegories, I think, now because of this heavy-handed critique, and it's a reasonable critique, and it doesn't exist for no reason, and I definitely use it a lot. It's for when there's an allegory. It's not like you don't realize what one movie that you love is that it's talking about the things that it's talking about. So why does a movie, when you realize it, come across as worse? What is it that we don't like about heavy-handedness? I guess I'm asking Craig.
Well, it's a little bit like, well, it's like having a veil that's too translucent. You ask, why bother? What was the point of the veil? It's like a
Mm,
sexy Halloween costume.
hmm.
It's like we all see what you're doing. Why did you
Maybe
try to act like why the
could you
veil at
could
all?
you that's a good way of putting it. Could you look at it and say, well, this is actually think about an allegory that worked on you, and now think about why, and then ask the question about the why the veil.
Well, I suppose you need the element of surprise.
So it only works
If you're going to be,
if you
you
don't see
know,
what they're doing.
if there's a powerful effect, it has to kind of hit you when you don't see it coming. Do you know what I mean?
Like the prophet Nathan with David, right? When he tells the story about taking the sheep from the guy who only had one sheep in spite of having many sheep himself. And then David realized it's about him and Bathsheba.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, what should we do with this man? He's like, you gotta kill this guy. And he's like, that man is you. Okay, the element of surprise is helpful. But I can't remember the last time I was surprised by an allegory, but you it still feels powerful in some sense. I think what you're saying is true, and I'm just trying to think about it a little more.
Because what's the point of the veil? You know what I mean? If you're trying to make a statement about the election or you're trying to do some kind of commentary, if you're going to have a very thin veil, then why not just have a direct commentary?
Hmm. So you think about you can't take it with you. I don't even actually, it's not really veiling anything. It's just pretty point blank saying,
No.
here's a way of life that's fruitful and beautiful, and here's a way of life that's not. Um, but maybe it's heavy-handed in a way that it's preachy, maybe. Um,
Yeah, well, it's
well,
just pure foil. There's no,
nuance.
it's all just antagonistic foil the entire time.
Well, actually, I would say that the where it dips away from foil is in the two love interests. The Jean Arthur and Jimmy Stewart characters are like the less extreme versions of their parents and grandparents.
Right.
We're doing some generic uh criticism that's maybe a little out of our league here. Heavy-handedness needs to be a surprise because it needs to convict. You need to show someone something in a way that they haven't been able to previously look at it. What I think the veil serves to do that, if you can decontextualize something, even if someone's aware of it, if you could take it out of their own context where they're particularly defensive or or kind of trapped in one way of thinking about something and put it another way. It's like rephrasing something. Uh, it's like then maybe they're better able to recognize some of the consequences of their actions or something.
I don't think you've said all that you have to say about heavy-handedness. What do you have?
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to keep teasing it out. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. It's interesting if you look at criticism as a genre, and then you're gonna, of course, think about criticism as a concept. when you begin to see these patterns of criticism, uh, and then you think, actually, why is that a criticism at all? Uh, then you start to, well, it all has to do with this thing that's been stuck in my head, and I shared this with you maybe a month or more ago, that cynicism isn't wisdom. Cynicism is not our best move forward. Being able to take things at face value is an advantage to us. And experience is trying to dupe us into there's so many things we lose if we take cynicism as a default maneuver. And heavy-handedness is kind of in the web of cynicism. Again, not that it can't be true or that it is never valid. But you think about weighing that critique on something and it being very instructive to those consuming it. But more often than not, I think it's a sad critique.
You know, to accuse something of heavy-handedness, it's almost a criticism of the timing. You have something like burn after reading, and there are these threads, you know, that at least come together in a way that's meaningful, although you don't know. But if you see the connection the entire time, then there's really it's like everything came together too soon. Like the climax happened at the beginning and then was just drawn out too long.
This thing you're saying about timing is a good point. I think when you say timing in association with heavy-handedness, I think I accuse something of being heavy-handed because I get the sense that they're trying to take advantage of the timing uh, to virtue signal or to make a profit, or they're just trying to get in on whatever's in the water, and capitalize. to capitalize on whatever's kind of in the water. And I could see that being off-putting.
This pattern that captivates us so much. Classic story structure. One way you can talk about this is to say that what it needs to do is there needs to be some moment where everything coheres and collapses together in a way where what you know now changes the meaning of everything that you saw previously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that, you're heavy. Well, this gets back to self-awareness as kind of the coin of the realm. And it's not true. Uh, it, it's like I I always want to be 2 steps ahead of whoever's hearing me. Say, no, I get it. I get what your criticism is going to be, and and then and then putting that forth. Um, and we don't, and consequently, because we see that as valuable or useful when we're able to do it. When we see someone who's not being self-aware, we get a bad taste for what they're up to. Uh, when you see someone who's wrestling with an idea that you had years ago, you're just like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Um, you know, we demand that our art has a greater sense of self-awareness. If they're going to be preachy, they need to acknowledge somehow in their presentation the other side of the argument or the nuance to the argument. That would lighten the hand.
Mm. You ever discuss this on a podcast? I know you have at least one podcast you do. It's focused on film criticism.
Uh, I've I've guested on a couple of podcasts that discuss film criticism, but don't regularly attend and haven't discussed heavy-handedness, I don't think. Is that what you asked? No, yeah, no, I have. I appreciate the opportunity to think out loud about it because, yeah, I have been thinking about it lately. Heavy. Don't want to be heavy. So anything that we publish or say, and over the course of this conversation, I'm sure we've been aware, self-aware about how heavy-handed we may have been being in a particular moment, and have sought to get out ahead of it. No, I know if we have to say something, because insofar as you have to train, teach, rebuke, correct, you have to say things. And in saying things, as a rhetorical advantage, you want to make sure that they know that you know what the criticisms are, have thought through them, have rejected them, and have moved forward with your position. This room you're in, what is it? It's not the living room.
It's the sunroom.
Okay, I felt it was something like that.
This is where the sun comes in.
Because I'd never been in your
The living
home.
room's back there. Yeah.
But when we visited Texas, you didn't have this home.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice that it has a sun.
It's pleasant. That's where I work from.
Really? How often have you found yourself? I know you do sometimes, but about how often do work away from the house?
all the time,
You go to
just
coffee shops?
because we travel a lot.
Oh, yeah. You guys
No,
really do travel
no,
like crazy.
yeah,
That's, I assume, is something that you're still enjoying.
I really enjoy it. It's mostly a function of Ruthie's work.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that you get to do that.
I'm not sure how you feel about this, and it relates to the self-awareness, but we haven't done this in a long time. And I find myself a little more unbearable, after having long periods of not having a conversation like this. I have conversations at work, they're often not discussion oriented, but I find myself totally out of practice in the skill of the tug of war of listening and contributing and volunteering.
I did too. You notice how much I
I feel very clumsy.
interrupted?
No, I didn't. I didn't think you did.
I interrupted a lot, and I decided even as I was doing it to keep doing it because I think it's a sign of a good relational. I think it's a good sign of
Yeah,
relationship. But and also I get tired of the taking turns format when I'm listening
totally.
and when I'm participating. And so getting back into practice, I think more importantly, and with you and me, gosh, we've been talking for so many years that it's uh I mean, it's not obviously seamless, but I feel extremely comfortable in the ongoing conversation. But no, I think the interruptive element or knowing when to be quiet or to take a turn or what to address or how much to stay on topic. Yeah, definitely all of that. There's a perpetual feeling of self-consciousness. But from my perspective, you do good. But you also, I mean, you default to the listening and teasing out position, uh, which is a very generous position, also a very safe position, um, a little bit political maybe, not having to. But no, you haven't dodged the question. I won't say. I don't think. I have to roll back the tape to tell for sure, but I can relate to what you're saying.
I didn't feel like you interrupted much, and I certainly didn't sense anything distasteful.
That's good. Between me, you, and Cal, I mean, we talk pretty regularly. Um, of course, there's a different element when you're recording, which we are, and when you're publishing, which we are. Um, that increases the self-awareness factor.
Thanks for doing this.
Likewise, enjoyed it.
We'll do it again. Next time we'll have that guy from Instagram who punches the trees.
I still don't know who that guy is, but you did it, man. You said we were going to have this conversation and you made it happen. So thanks.
Likewise.
See you, brother.
See you around.